Yes, yes. How are you doing today? Today we are very lucky. We have an exciting episode, because we do have a special guest, Chris L. Dove. She's joining us on the Dad Puzzles podcast, where we're gonna, dive into the stories and strategies to empower dads and families. And you know, my special guest today, she's truly dynamic. She's not only a dedicated mother, but she's a successful author, financial guru, and a pioneer in the world of financial psychology. So Chris helps individuals and families unlock the often overlooked emotional side of money, um, and she's guiding them to make smarter, more intentional financial decisions. So this is really amazing, and so please pay attention, and let's see what we can, what we can learn from our special guest. Thank you again, Chris, for joining.
Thank you for the introduction. I'm so pleased and honored to be on the podcast today.
Oh,
I was
thank you.
thrilled when you reached out about having me, and what a great opportunity to speak to fathers. And it's so important to pass down the our wisdom about finances and managing money.
Amazing. That is true. Thank you so much for truly accepting to do this, because really our goal to speak as many um, successful parents or parents that are going through it, but they have some wisdom from it, so that we can learn from that, so that people that in the similar situation, they can learn and do better. That's truly our goal.
Yes, yes, that's
Yes, yes.
wonderful.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, because like sometimes, like one of the other goal I was thinking, okay, so we're trying to enrich fathers with the knowledge, or parents in general, because we have single moms and single dads.
Yes.
This is so besides just sharing the techniques or some information about how to raise their kids better, I want them to also be financially independent, so that they can have the time, more time with the kids. Because sometimes, we have folks, their career demands them to be not available most of the time, like throughout the week, or even sometimes over the weekend. So it's very hard to talk to those kind of dads, and you know making them feel like they're not doing enough. But in reality, life is pushing them to do so much outside the family. So we are
Yes.
happy that you're here. So maybe you can show us some ways that we can deal with the finance that we, with a little bit of finance that we have, so we can make it more useful, like more blessed, I guess.
Yes, yes, and I work with a lot of clients who think I'm not far enough ahead to manage my money or to start investing or to have a plan. But if
Right.
you don't manage your money and start investing and have a plan, then you
Hmm.
never get to the point where you you never get
Oh.
to the point where you have enough that you feel you need to manage. It's you have to start somewhere, even if you're working with a dollar, because
Mhm.
ultimately time is the, like you said, time is the resource that we want. It's the resource that when we have children, we're highly aware of how little we have.
Right,
and
absolutely.
and for me and my clients, wealth is about financial independence, and it's about reclaiming time and autonomy.
Amazing. So you do have a degree in financial psychology, correct?
I do. My degree is in financial planning and financial psychology.
Hmm.
Financial planning, I think people know what that is.
Right.
Financial psychology is a little more mysterious. It's a
Hmm.
new kind of budding field, but
Okay.
it looks at how our brain wiring, how our beliefs about money, how our
Hmm.
habits influence our financial outcomes. And maybe that's our culture, our childhood socialization, our personal experience, but
Hmm.
we internalize all of these things based on what generation we're in, whether we grew up urban or rural, or our socioeconomic status. And then directly and indirectly, all of these things constantly influence our financial outcomes. And so, as a coach and consultant, I try to help
Hmm.
people get out of the way of their own success, because a lot of our barriers, unfortunately, are internal.
Right. Oh yeah, this is a big one. I think most of the time, they say that we are because of our traditions, or based on what, like whether it's your family or, like you say, your culture. All those things, they're really embedded in us, so we make decisions. Even speaking is from, like, I'm noticing now I'm speaking just like my dad. But in reality, after studying a little bit about speech and everything,
Yeah.
there is no like, oh yeah, this is how I speak. There's so much you can do with your speech,
Yes,
and
yes.
sometimes it seems foreign, but we're taking things that we are brought up with. So this is definitely, that's the psychology part of it. Thank you for sharing.
I remember the first time I heard my father's words come out of my mouth. My
Hmm.
children were carrying plates from a buffet, like paper plates on
Hmm.
my hand, and you could see things were wobbly. And
Right.
I, two hands for beginners. And I thought,
Hmm.
oh my gosh, was that my dad's words coming out of
Hmm.
my mouth?
Oh man, you see.
We are the product of, we are very much the product of our upbringing.
Amazing, amazing. So how do you help your clients so far? Like so far you say you help them to kind of get rid of that. So, like in terms of their things that are that are blocking them from having that financial, like, the success. So how do you do that?
Yeah, so it starts with unlearning,
Mm-hmm.
because we learn things, and some of things are incomplete or myths or misconceptions. Some things were true at one point in time, but they just aren't any longer.
Mm-hmm.
Our parents might have done what was the best thing to do with money when
Right.
or when they were younger, but it's not. We don't live in the same reality now, and
Mm-hmm.
so then it's filling in holes and gaps in people's financial knowledge
Mm-hmm.
and educating them. But awareness, unfortunately, awareness doesn't always change habits. We know this
Mm-hmm.
from fitness and diet, right? You
Mm-hmm.
can know what healthy food is, and you should work out, but it doesn't mean you're going to eat healthy food or work out. And the same thing with finance. There's a lot of people who understand what to do, but it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean they'll do it. And a lot of that gets to motivation,
Mm-hmm.
environmental structure, like
Okay.
automating things so that you don't
Mm-hmm.
have to make those decisions ongoing,
Okay.
or maybe putting together a budget. Like the way people learn to budget
Mm-hmm.
is, or the way we imagine budgets is often very primitive,
Mm-hmm.
and this restrictive thing where I think of budgeting as a way to allocate your money, as a way to have more freedom, not less. And
Mm-hmm.
so, like, for instance, I think of it like your clothing in your closet. If
Right.
you threw all your clothes on the ground, that's not having a budget, right? But hanging them up, that's how you have a budget. You're organizing your money. And I
Mm-hmm.
might organize my money very differently than you, but we
Mm-hmm.
both need a system. And
Right.
budgeting is that system. So I help people get that into place, ultimately with the goal of creating a cushion for emergencies and an
Mm-hmm.
investment so that they have the ability to work less, go back to school, take time off for their children,
Mm-hmm.
or start their own business. Like,
Okay.
people want to be in a place where they can chase their passions and do things. And then ultimately, if you to get to raising children differently, you have to change yourself first. You can't teach children what you don't know.
Right.
And so you have to really work on your own finances at the same
Mm-hmm.
time you're teaching children finances.
Oh, amazing, amazing. Thank you. I think those are so many great points that I'll definitely make sure that we pay attention to them. And, folks that are watching, we can create a summary for them to, make sure they pay attention to that. Can you talk a little bit about this great, project that you have at the moment? You're writing a book, and, can you talk a little bit about it?
I am. I'm writing a book called Beyond the Piggy Bank: Passing
Hmm.
Wealth and Wisdom to the Next Generation.
Okay.
And in its early stages,
Hmm.
I'm sort of dabbling and writing in different parts of it, but
Hmm.
it's really important to me to get this out. But it's also, and there are some good books out there, but what I want to do is start with a principle and then talk about how to apply it in life, and then talk about how to demonstrate it, and then talk
Hmm.
about how to introduce it to children.
Okay. What motivated you to to get on these projects, like you mentioned?
There's a few things. One is that almost every time I work with anybody, at some point they
Hmm.
say, I wish I learned this in school. I wish
Right.
earlier. I wish I started investing earlier. And then even for myself, I didn't learn about finance, and I didn't learn about finance until my children were older. So I missed all those crucial years. I mean, ultimately, the reason I'm writing this is for my children. So my
Hmm.
children have a blueprint to teach what I didn't know when they were toddlers, when they were
Okay.
at those young ages.
Right.
And when it comes to wealth, time's your best friend.
Hmm.
You can't, the magic of compounding takes time. And so a dollar, I always tell my daughter, her putting a dollar in is equal to me putting 10,000 in, right?
Hmm.
Um,
Right.
time is this magical thing. And
Hmm.
so a lot of it is just, can we get this information to the youngest people who have the most time to take advantage of wealth building?
Okay, okay. Yeah, this is, I think, also tied up to what you have learned so far, about like your personal finances growing up. Is there anything else that, besides the value of it, like any other point that you think, like what else have you learned, like growing up about finances?
Yeah, my parents, and interesting, my parents came from sort of a quieter generation. They didn't
Hmm.
talk about a lot.
Okay.
A lot of what we learned was through watching. But
Hmm.
one thing my parents did teach me, and it's not directly finance,
Okay.
but taught me to value education. They taught me to be a lifelong learner. My parents, particularly my father, always had a book in his hand, and there was at least one more on the coffee table and one more beside his bed. Every
Amazing.
we would divvy up the newspaper, passing the sections back and forth, reading them.
Amazing.
And they taught me to be curious and to take
Hmm.
chances. Um, they didn't talk much about our budget, but it was obvious we had one until I was a teenager. And then
Right.
I was given a credit card to
Hmm.
which had like a certain amount of money on it that was for my budget for clothing for the year. And I
Okay.
remember first blew it all in a couple days. And that winter, I really wished I had
Hmm.
money on the card to buy warm clothes. And
Right.
um, and they taught me to prioritize experiences over things. We would go
Hmm.
vacations every year, and my sister and I would sit for hours flipping through a book of resorts, seeing, do we want tennis courts? Do we want a swimming
Hmm.
pool? And debating what we cared the most about, teaching us to comparison shop and to negotiate and compromise. And
Right.
I remember like going into the bank with them to open my first savings account, and just these big money moments, right?
Right, right, right. Amazing, amazing. So, what advice do you have for dads that are that are listening at the moment? So, how can they set up their children for success? And
Uh, let's see, so many things. The first is,
right.
don't assume your children will learn what they need to know elsewhere.
Hmm.
Assume that you have to teach them everything that they need to know about money.
That's
Uh,
deep. Yeah.
Take opportunities to introduce them to currencies when they're really little. This is, um, this is what this is worth. This is, what you could buy with it.
Hmm.
Teach them to calculate, to add and subtract, and use money to teach them math. Um,
Okay.
Really important. Differentiating between wants and needs as early as possible.
Hmm.
This is what I want, this is what I need. And I have my clients teach their children to have their teach their children to invest 20% of their allowance, their earned money,
Right.
to get used to allocating their money,
Hmm.
and teach them to give to charity is something you could do with either money or time or both.
Right.
And then, even if they're small, helping them set realistic and achievable financial goals. Like,
Hmm.
I'm going to save for a bicycle. I'm going to save to go to an amusement park. And teaching them to delay gratification. So I always talk about with allowance, or if you pay children, give them enough to have some things they want, but not everything they want. So they have to save, they have to make choices.
Okay.
Um, yeah. And then encouraging an entrepreneurial mindset, have
Okay.
them do a lemonade stand or start
Hmm.
some kind of business. Um, and then if you catch a myth coming out of their mouth, bust
Right.
it.
Right. That's a great point. And also, I think you with this you'll be killing two. I like I'm one of those that used to say. I love to say a lot. Sometimes you're killing two birds. Like sometimes three with the same stone because now you're fixing their psychology. Now you're making sure that they're growing up with the right psychology, so
Yeah.
that when they grow up, they don't have these limitations.
Yeah.
And I think this is amazing, and I like the like the myth busting. This is great. For there's an aspect that you mentioned about we be the first teachers. This is a very good thing. I think I cannot me and my wife we always like to say like let's be the first teachers to our kids in a sense that for my girls I make sure that I do things that in the future they're not going to be surprised by somebody doing something to them to seem to be like foreign because they're not used to that,
Yes. Yeah.
right? So I guess this definitely should apply to, like you mentioned, anything that we think, like if it's finances or anything that we can teach firsthand. Be the first teacher, I think, is more memorable to them. I think this is a
Yeah.
very great point.
Yes, that exposure. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think if I've thought of a few more,
Right.
is that to teach them to run their own race, not to compare. So they're not keeping up with the Joneses for the rest of their life and not succumbing to fear of missing out.
Right. Right.
And remember that they learn what you do more than what you say,
Right.
right? If you
Absolutely.
model the behavior you want to instill, because if you say don't do something that you're doing, they will surely do it. Um,
Absolutely.
and then nothing is more valuable than the time you spend with them.
Hmm.
I think a lot of parents feel the need to buy their children everything and anything and everything,
Hmm.
but what's really important at the end is every minute spent together being precious, and not
Exactly.
to necessarily sacrifice our time to have a
Right.
little more money to buy a little bit more stuff when
Hmm.
time is what really is going to have an impact in the long run.
That is true. And I'm fortunate to realize that before it's too late on my second, like I have been the reason I chose, this remote work and such, because I wanted to spend that time more with them, whether it's dropping them off to, like in the morning to school or picking them up or, like these games, all these things. I think is an amazing thing that I didn't have that, but I'm trying to, make it end with me by doing that to them. So hopefully they'll also make an effort to make sure that they're there for their kids as well. I
Yes.
think I think the only thing that I'm missing sometimes is like sometimes I'm doing things, let's say if it's is it traditional, like if it's like the prayers or all these things. I don't involve as much, but I need to be like I'm reminded by my wife, to really trying to, you know, make sure that even if they're busy, do it
Mhm.
in front of them because sometimes I can do it, like in my own privacy in the office or something like that. But it's good to kind of do things in the exposure, even if you don't really annoy them by cutting them off whatever they're doing so they can like do it with you. At least let them see you. I think this is
Yeah.
a great point because they will always remember, oh yeah, Baba used to read this book at this time even though it was busy. Oh, Baba used to pray at this time, like those
Yeah.
things. They definitely will remember you for it because now that we know how how temporary the life is. So it's good to really, leave it the way we want it to be when we're not here. So amazing, my friend. Thank you so much, Chris. And is there any other questions or any other ideas that came through, as we speak that um, that you want to share, or what's your analysis about dad puzzles? This is this is just a side question
Mhm.
after the first question.
Um, okay.
I have two questions. First, if you have any, extra information, as we have, based on what we have spoken about,
um,
on and mhm,
the extra information is, and I think this is more, I talk a lot about like a wealthy mindset
right,
versus like a poor middle class mindset.
hmm
And how, and one thing is to go find that information. How do people who are wealthy look at things differently, approach things differently?
Hmm.
Because one thing I keep coming across is like when you're middle class or poor, you tend to focus on how much you make your salary.
Hmm.
But when somebody's wealthy, they focus on their net worth. And
Hmm.
so we're taught generally, if we're grow up poor, middle class, we're taught to purchase, that our
Hmm.
money is for purchasing, to buy
Hmm.
things we want and like. And
Hmm.
those things, unfortunately, if you look back 10 years ago, you see not many of them last. They're
Right.
usually depreciating assets. They're things that will be gone over time. Where when people grow up wealthy, they're taught to buy assets, investments, whether it's real estate or stocks. They're taught to buy things that will produce over
Right.
time. And it's very, very important to get in that mindset, to get in the mindset of buying things that will be worth more in the future rather than less, and buying things that will pay you dividends or interest or rent. Because ultimately, if you can't produce a large enough amass a large enough amount of wealth, you'll have to work forever. You'll never be able to step off the treadmill and be there for your children and your grandchildren and hopefully great grandchildren.
Right. Right. That's a great point. That's a great point. Like I think there are a couple of things that come to mind when you're mentioning that. It's like sometimes we want to get comfortable with a with something that is relatively cheaper for now versus doing something big that will last us for some time. Us and our kids. This is a generational thing.
Yes,
Um, Amazing.
because blink and it's been 20 years, right?
Hmm. Right.
Blink and in another decade is gone.
Oh.
And then remind me the second question.
Yes. So the second question I was just going to ask you about, about dad puzzles so far. What do you think about these fatherhood projects? And um, it's about fatherhood, and also I want to, now I'm chatting about, like parenthood and stuff because like I mentioned, we have single dads, single moms, so
Yeah.
that's why I speak to really everybody so we can learn
Yeah.
from everyone about fatherhood. And and sometimes also ladies can be our daughters, which they know us more than we know ourselves sometimes, so we can also learn from everybody because they can, if they're not fathers themselves, they can speak about their dads. Let's say, what is the best thing they've learned from their dad, so that we can impact other folks, like what you just mentioned, the story about the education from your dad, and and also how he raised you with with his with your mom, like rest in peace, how all that knowledge is very useful, right?
It is, it is. And I was, I think I told you when we first talked about my coming on, my children's father passed when he was 28.
Oh
And
yes.
so
Hmm. Hmm.
I took
Yes.
for different points in their life, I took what was typically a father role or
Right.
took both roles. And
Hmm.
in any single parent, right? Single parents aren't fathers and mothers. They're
Right.
everything. They're any
Right. The
everything.
parents, yeah.
And
That's.
and I think
Mhm.
when you're in that position, there's no one to fall back on. You need all the help you can get and all the good advice you can get. And I love, I looked after you invited me on. I looked at your shows, and I think, yeah, people, and just to normalize, to say like, this is really hard, and it's
Mhm.
really hard for everyone in your position,
Mhm.
and to just acknowledge that and say, you're struggling, we're here with you
Mhm.
struggling, and here's, some tips and tricks to make the struggle
Amazing.
a little bit less.
Amazing. Wow, thank you so much for sharing that. Yes, there's so many now, and actually, I'm happy that there's so many other um, groups, or like podcasts, or like organization that are pioneering for that. That they're trying to speak out for dads, and and parenting in general, and it's definitely important. We need that, and so we can learn. Like yesterday, I was just chatting with uh, with a soon to be fellow father, and he's a coach himself, and he was happy. with what we're doing, and also he's familiar with most of the stuff now that he's supposed to be doing and stuff, and he will be in touch if he has any questions. But it's amazing to see people that are that are beginning the journey, and they're learning from people that have that have been there before.
Yeah.
I think that's how we make the impact, as that's our legacy, I guess.
I think so. And
Mm-hmm.
so many. I remember when I had my son's my oldest child.
Mm-hmm.
When my father had
Mm-hmm.
us, fathers couldn't come in the delivery room. And he was
Right.
so excited to come in. He came running in with a camera, and I went, whoa, whoa. But, but
Slow
he,
down there, buddy.
but he cut
It
my
was
son,
nice. It was amazing. Yes.
but he cut my
That's
umbilical cord. My father did.
amazing.
And he was
Yes.
so happy to be there, you know?
I share his I share his you know his his excitement, because that's how it was with my wife. And later on she's watching, she said, why did you take all these pictures? For me, I'm just excited, for
Yeah.
but it's good memories. I think you enjoy those moments,
Yeah.
especially you get to appreciate them more, because with COVID I did not make it to two of the deliveries because of the COVID, because my kids were born in the COVID era, two of them. So I didn't get to attend to two of those deliveries. I
Oh my
was I was doing that, like over the Zoom call. Imagine that, because of the limitations and stuff. We understand, but
God.
yeah.
I remember when my
Mhm,
mother was in a nursing home, I remember us standing outside her window, talking to her
mhm,
on the phone and touching
mhm.
hands through the window.
Oh,
It was a very tough time to stay connected. Yeah.
absolutely, but we survived, and we have some people that many folks, they lost their loved ones, and I'm grateful that we're still here. And there's so many politics behind it. We're not going to delve into it. You know how it is. Everything is politics, but
Yes.
but gratitude is always there. Whether there's politics or not, we're grateful that we're still here. Me and you, we're chatting about like parenthood, and how we can make it better, and how we can improve our generations going forward. So
Yeah.
truly, this. Please go ahead, my friend.
Oh,
I'm
I was going
excited.
to say, I'm grateful that I'm having a conversation with someone who's not in the same country, live on, live on social media. What
Oh
a
yes, yes. No, actually, I came back. Remember, I went to when we were speaking. I had lost my in-law. I had traveled to Morocco. I
yeah.
told you. I came back. Everything
Oh,
is,
you're back.
Yes, I am back. I am back. Imagine if I had that long of a break. I think I'll be um, you know, not. I'll be free. Or one of those, like the
You'll be,
financially free people that can roam. And no, I'm not that. I'm not there yet.
but soon, soon, I
Uh,
hope.
oh yeah. So tell me about it. So, but thank you so much, really. This has been a great episode. And you've brought so much wisdom from understanding the deeper psychology of our financial choices. And those practical steps you mentioned, there. I hope parents can really take note and ensure that their kids, they thrive financially going forward. Um, if there's any like one takeaway from this conversation is that the building the financial success starts from changing the way we think, talk about money, right?
Yeah. How we
so
think, how we
so
talk,
this
how we
Mhm.
act.
Amazing, thank you. So be sure to keep an eye out for her upcoming book, which is coming up soon, I hope, right?
Hopefully next year. I hope it'll come out next year.
Amazing. Well, we have to sell it here too. We look forward to that. And if you found any value today, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so we can keep bringing you more insightful conversations. And until next time, please keep building those stronger family foundations, one puzzle piece at a time. Thanks so much. Chris, thanks so much, my friend.
Thank you.